it is a wonderful day to do a show. I'm Mary Grace, The Mary Grace Show, and I am here with Dr. Shawn Baker, the carnivore doctor, for episode 15 of Healing America and Beyond. And we have a little cameo visit today with our friend Daisy. Show the whole dog so we
See,
can
I
see
almost
how
am. She's not
she's
much to
so
her.
cute. Yeah. So
She's all about 6.5 pounds, so she's monster.
oh, well, that's right. You just keep doing arm curls with
That's
that.
right.
Um,
Eventually she'll get bigger.
so so she's gonna make an appearance here and there. Last time, I think we had one of my cats came on screen. I think it was my cat that's bigger than Daisy,
Probably, yeah. It
my
doesn't take
giant
much
cat.
to be bigger than
I
this
have a
one.
cat that weighs about 18 pounds. So he's 3 daisies. So we are here to talk about you know, food and fitness and longevity and health and all the things that people love to talk about, at least people who follow Dr. Baker and me. And so we really love bringing these conversations to all of you. And I don't even know if we're streaming right now. I don't see any chat. Let's just see if we're actually online. It looks like it. It looks like we are. Okay, so we will just wait and see what happens. Interesting. Offline, offline, offline.
I got the notification for Twitter, so I'll retweet that. I'm
You
not sure
got
what
my
the
notification. Let's just see. Yeah, so bear with us, everybody. Okay, here we go. Well, we got people watching on X. YouTube is there. Good, awesome. Okay,
so the chat is
excellent. It
rolling.
just yeah, everything was just
Okay.
sort of maybe in a lag. It's
There you go.
Friday.
All
Yeah.
right.
So uh, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're enjoying beautiful weather here in Virginia. It's I think the last time we talked, it was really cold and we had this snowpocalypse situation going on. Everything was covered in ice. And today it was 80. So
Nice,
we're
nice,
pretty
nice.
happy about that.
I
Yeah.
think I did. Did I tell you we're moving, right? I think I told you that, didn't I?
No, wait, where are you going?
We're
East
moving.
Coast?
We're moving to Florida, so we're going to
Oh,
be
okay.
in this summer is when we're going to make the move, but we're going to be down in St. Petersburg, so on the Gulf
Okay,
side.
West
So
Coast,
it'll
yeah.
be because
Oh, cool.
my weather is rain, 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 rain. You know, you look at like the 10-day forecast, and every day 85%
Yeah.
chance of rain across the board, and it gets old. I got to tell you, it's beautiful up here in the Pacific Northwest, but I like the
Yeah.
sunshine, and I want to get outside and run around and be active, and I'm trying to learn how to sprint, and so it's hard to do when it's slippery and wet and cold and icy, and
Mhm.
so we're
Yeah.
looking forward to it. So
I
anyway,
don't blame you. I don't
packing up
blame
the
you.
dogs and heading east and south. So
Okay, okay, well, we'll be closer neighbors.
yeah, for sure.
Uh, Summertime in Florida, it's hot. I mean, you're gonna get your conditioning in, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
no, I live in the Gulf. I grew up in Texas. I grew up in the
Oh,
Texas on the
okay,
Gulf
so
Coast there, so
you're
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, for sure. And
got it.
all
Okay.
things considered, I prefer the heat to the cold. I was just,
Yeah.
cold takes a lot more effort, I think, because you got to put on all this crap, and it's just like, it's too much time.
You burn more calories, but I'm the same way.
If you go outside, I
I
was
think
just
you
like,
burn
I ain't going
calories
out.
I think you burn the calories just putting on all the clothes, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
what
perhaps.
I think is amazing is reading accounts of people who did all this, exploration back in the day when they had, all these heavy clothes and heavy packs, and it was so much different then, and they just kept at it, right? My dad's reading the book about Ernest Shackleton and the
Yeah.
Endeavor, right, and the
That's
Antarctic
great. That's a
ex
crazy story, isn't it? Yeah, Shackleton stuff is
that
just
story,
amazing what
oh
they did. Yeah.
my, yeah, like, I think I read that in the dead of winter one time,
Mhm.
and I was so cold the whole time I was reading it, but I think, we've come a long way. So, one of the things that Dr. Baker and I do here on this conversation is Dr. Baker does answer questions. We ask
Mhm.
that you save those questions to the end. We'll try to give as much time as we can. We typically try to keep the show at an hour, no longer.
Mhm.
And so if you have a question, just hold it. And then at the end, we'll give you a chance. It gets lost in the chat if you start asking
Yeah,
questions
I see a
now.
couple good questions in there that I see you guys asking about Zepbound and some of the other stuff, and schizophrenia, and I'd like to address those. But yeah, we'll kind of do our normal chat stuff, and then we can
Okay.
get back to those things.
Yeah,
So,
and I'll make a note so we don't forget that.
what is new in
So
the world that you've observed that you want to chat about? Is there anything there?
Well, I thought something interesting came across my radar, and that
Mhm.
is that, Secretary Kennedy was talking about color coding the food labels.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did you see that? And I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah, basically how processed they are, red, yellow, and green, basically,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because, a long time ago, people learned how to read labels, or so we thought, but that
Mhm.
was based on the fat-free, low-fat movement, and they were really taught to read about macros, not so much about ingredients.
Yeah,
And I think now that we're moving toward single ingredient, minimally processed foods, I think it's a good thing that we're gonna have, um, sort of a color code so that you can look easily and say, "Okay, this is a green food," which I'm
yeah, yeah.
assuming they're gonna use green for Whole Foods, right?
You know what I would like to see? And
What?
and again, I mean, how much obviously there's labels, people can flip the back over and see what's on there, but,
Yeah.
people when they do it, the information is available to people. But I think this, maybe it simplifies it for some people that just
Mhm.
really aren't aware that, hey, this ultra processed stuff potentially has harmful ingredients in it that are bothering me. And, it'd be interesting if they used to arrange the grocery store by that. Like, here's a red section of the grocery store, here's the yellow section, here's a green section. And you don't even have to think. You just walk in there to the green section, buy all your fruits, vegetables, meats, seafood, dairy, and then walk out. And then the other one is kind of like the minimally stuff. And then the other one is just the
Mhm.
radioactive food who's on the one side there. And so you can kind of just kind of skip like I do now. I just kind of,
Right. Right.
it's just a thoroughfare for me to walk through. It could be a shelf full of bricks for all I care, because I don't even, potato chips on
Right.
crack
I
right
I
now.
can't
I don't even
yeah.
think about that stuff anymore. So,
I can't remember the last time I went down one of the interior aisles of the grocery store, and I mean, I don't know what half that stuff is. I think you would have to have a conversation with the big food lobby, Dr. Baker, because they're the ones that pay for shelf space, and they get the
mm,
end caps, and they get the
yeah,
brightly
yeah.
colored bags of chips and those sorts of things, and they get the candy aisle, right at the checkout, and I mean, there's a lot of jockeying and lobbying that goes into what is where in the grocery store.
Mhm.
But I do think that's an interesting idea. I think it's a start, and one of the things that I know from having taught kindergarten for years is that you have to work with the lowest common denominator. And so, literally, color coding is a
Yeah.
good start
Well, I mean,
because
that's what they do in Europe. I mean, Europe, you go to,
yeah,
Europe, and they've got A, B, C, D, E, F, or I think maybe it's
okay.
F or E or something like that. And, it's kind of a shame because, like, red meat is given the lowest grade and stuff like that. So I mean, you got to defend where these things fall in those
Mhm,
things. But if you say we're going to base it upon the degree of processing and the degree of sort of non-nutritive ingredients like emulsifiers and
mhm.
preservatives and those types
Yeah,
of things.
yeah.
I mean, it's just a way to divide the food. Whether it makes people healthier or not remains to be seen. I suspect
Mhm.
it possibly will. And again, will people follow that? Do people care?
Right,
How many
right.
people over the last 20 years walk to the grocery store with the dietary guidelines in their hand? And they say, "Oh, I can only do that." No, no one does that. But I think,
Yeah.
like I said, when the guidelines came out, it was a visceral sort of just a gestalt picture of what food should look like, and hopefully that
Mhm.
is something that
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
starting to realize. And again, you and I and the thousands and thousands of other people
Mhm.
talking about this is having an impact. Obviously, you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing with
Mhm.
highly addictive type foods.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So I see some people talking about carbs actually get you shredded, so on and so forth from this guy. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
there's, well, a couple
So
other things in the news. The glyphosate, I don't think you saw that issue come up. I don't know if we
oh,
chatted
yeah,
about that yesterday.
we did talk about that,
Did we talk about that last
well,
time?
no, we haven't
Mm,
talked about it, but I let me just make a note. So, carbs, glyphosate. I just wanted to say one more thing about the grocery store situation. One of the biggest issues, especially since people got addicted to ultra processed foods and DoorDash and things like that.
mm,
One, I think that EBT benefits no longer cover like DoorDash and, certain, uh, ultra processed foods, sodas, things like that. So that's a good thing. But the issue that is coming up is that people don't know how to cook. They don't know how to make a basic hamburger patty. They don't know how to cook an egg. They don't have the ability, they haven't been taught to do it. I had a girl that was staying with me one day, and I had some hot dogs in the fridge, and I told her to, put some hot dogs on, and I just assumed that she would know how to put a little bit of water in the pan and heat up the hot dogs. She didn't know how to do that. 21 years old. And so I think that we have to work with that scenario as well, that we have to start with the lowest, denominator and see. As far as glyphosate goes, uh, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know it's been in the news and, it's not completely being pulled out yet, and I think they explained why they're not completely removing it from the food supply, but it's pretty damaging.
Well, I mean, that's a controversial statement. I mean,
Yeah,
there is evidence to show that it does cause harm to humans. I mean, obviously, there's been lawsuits settled.
yeah,
Monsanto has paid, I think, 7 billion, and may have pledged to pay another 10 billion. I think the aggregate total is like 17 billion in fines they're going to pay. But they want I guess immunity beyond that, I
mhm,
think, or something like
mhm,
that. Something along those lines. And of course, Trump has said that this is in our natural interest to have glyphosate so we can produce as much food as possible. Currently, much of the ingredients for glyphosate is being produced offshore, perhaps in China and stuff like that. So they're trying to say, hey, this is critical to our infrastructure for food, and we need it for the
mhm.
short term at least.
Right,
And I
right.
think most people concede that we can't just do away with pesticides tomorrow because the food
Mhm.
system would utterly collapse. Can you transition away from that? I know people have talked about, they have these robots that actually, drive up and down the fields and shoot lasers at weeds, and it's actually
Ooh,
being rolled out and being used. Now the question is,
yeah.
what does it cost per acre to do that versus a
Mhm,
pesticide? Is it cost prohibitive? Obviously, costs will come down with scale over time. So there's a lot of nuance between, on this. Now it's interesting because, one of the things, if we look at, if you're worried about glyphosate, and some people certainly are, then you would eat a diet that was very low in grain and very low in
mhm.
legumes, particularly. These are the really high foods: wheats, corns, soy, uh, you know, uh, um, uh, oats, and things like that. Very, very high in
Yeah,
glyphosate
yeah.
residue. Even though, when I say high, high compared to everything else. I mean, it's still relatively low parts per billion, but it's still much higher than, like, for instance, meat, milk, and things like that have almost none. I mean, it's as
Mhm,
low as you can possibly get, because and one of the reasons it was chosen as a pesticide is because in mammalian physiology, we don't seem to be directly affected by it. That is to say, now the question with humans is that, but it does impact microorganisms. So what happens is when it's
mhm,
exposed to our gut is unaffected to our gut microbiota is affected to that.
mhm,
And does that have downstream effects? And that's where I think the main area of contention is, the people that
mhm.
produce this stuff, defend this stuff, say even that's BS. Whereas a lot of people will say, hey, look, this is a real issue. So, um, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on glyphosate or pesticides. I'm not, but I will just say the data is mixed. There's certainly
Mhm.
data to the point that it could be harmful to humans. And if we had a viable solution that was cost effective, I mean, it would be a no brainer to get rid of it. In my view,
Right.
I think it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
I
if
think one of the
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
of the things that I think, Kennedy is trying to do is also to revert our farming practices to regenerative farming, which mitigates the need for all of these herbicides and pesticides to a large degree,
Yeah,
and to return to, like, small, like, mixed farms instead
yeah.
of giant monocrops. Have you seen that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the argument for years, and I've talked to this, and I understand both sides reasonably well. I mean,
Mhm.
that certainly has been shown to be effective in certain areas, in certain climates, in certain, biospheres. Some people will say, "Hey, it's tough to do this in the winter in Montana. It's frozen over. It's hard to do that."
Mhm.
Then you got
Mhm.
guys like Gabe Brown in North Dakota doing it. So, I mean, it's like it's one of those things where, um, you know, could we convert our entire grazing system into a regenerative system overnight? Probably not. This is probably generational. There'd be over a couple generations where we could
Mhm.
make those transitions if it's even
Yeah.
possible or
Yeah.
desirable. But yeah, I mean, it's the glyphosate stuff is, like I said, if you want to avoid glyphosate, go carnivore. It's the best diet to avoid glyphosate. I can tell you. The same thing
Mhm.
with plastics.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is something I didn't realize. I know a lot of people were concerned about microplastics. Again, is that overblown? I don't know, maybe, maybe not.
Mhm.
But if you want to avoid microplastics in your diet, the worst place for microplastics in the human diet is actually fruit and vegetables, particularly conventional fruit and vegetables are
Oh.
they have the highest percentage. This is where we get most of our microplastics in the human diet, outside of things like salt and what's the other stuff that we bottled water and things like that. But I think from
Oh,
actual
yeah, all
food
the bottled
items,
water.
from
Yeah.
food items, it's fruits and vegetables, which is kind of interesting to
Mhm.
realize. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a comment about the Amish don't need glyphosate to grow food for their community. And again, it's like, how big is a community? If your community is a few thousand people versus a few, hundreds of millions of people, there's different economies of scale in that. And not that I'm defending pesticide usage, but I
Yeah.
think that system was put in place after World War II, and then doubled down with Earl Butz in the 1970s when he was the ag commissioner, and he said, "Hey, go big or go home," basically. And
Mm.
so we've got this whole infrastructure around the go big, go home. Massive inputs, massive chemical inputs, huge machinery, low decreased manpower, lots of machine and pesticide power. So it's going to take a while to convert that.
Yeah.
And will it ever happen? I don't know. I mean, when you talk to guys like Will Harris, White Oaks pasture,
Mhm.
Will's funny. He sounds like Foghorn Leghorn. If you remember the
Yeah.
Green Things commercial, like a big giant rooster. Sounds just like the guy. And when I talked to him about it, Will, I said, are you hopeful about it? He goes, "No, I'm not hopeful." He's like an old curmudgeon, man. He says, "I can do it, but no one else can." It's just, because he says, "I live in a special place and I'm in Buford, Georgia, and it's a special valley or ridge or whatever. And I've got special
Mhm.
property and, too hard for other people." So we'll see what happens with
Interesting.
that. I mean, it's interesting.
I think so. I mean, it's you know, it is interesting because I think that we've been told for so long that, you know, the way that we do things is the only way, and the way that we harvest crops is the only way, the way that we plant crops is the only way, but the fact is it's not, and it wasn't that way before they changed it over, and, America managed, we built a country and grew food and fed people, and so I think it'll be interesting to see where we go with this. But speaking of food, do you have any updates on what's going on with the beef farmers in the country? I know that's been an issue, a concern.
Uh, well, I mean, gosh, it's been a lot of stuff going back and forth with that. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things going on. I don't
Mhm.
know which particular issue you're talking about. I mean, right now,
Like the
uh,
monopolies and the
yeah,
fact
yeah. I mean,
that
we've
the
had this big
small
packing
farms.
monopoly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's as most people know by now, 85% of our beef is produced through four companies, basically, at least packed by
Mhm.
Cardinal Tyson, JBS, and National Beef, which is also known as Marfrig. Those later two are Brazilian companies.
Mhm.
And I mean, our independent ranchers are under enormous pressure. It's a tough business for many of them, for most of them. I mean, it's hard to make a profit. I think 85% of ranchers work outside jobs. I mean, they do
Mhm.
that as kind of almost like a hobby job, because they
Yeah.
can't afford not to. They got to work a 9 to 5 somewhere else, and then they got to run the farm on their off time with their kids and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it's a tough one because no one seems to be looking out for them. And
Right.
I mean, like I said, I tell people as much as I can. First of all, I thank those folks anytime I can. Anytime I get a chance to talk in front of ranchers or two, I tell them, "Hey, thanks for what you're doing, because it's hard work and you're
Yeah.
feeding the rest of us the best nutrition on the planet." And yeah, but I mean, there's no one out there looking out for them. I mean, there's still things. We're still talking about the M cool, the mandatory country of origin labeling. As most people don't know, you can get some ground beef, grind it up in Namibia and mix it with some beef from South America and Mexico and throw it in a vat and call it product of the USA still. So we don't know where our food's coming from.
Mhm.
I think that's just a knowledge thing, whether it makes a difference or not. Some people would debate that, but still, I
Yeah.
think our US ranchers would like to proudly say, "Hey, I'm an American rancher. It's a product of the USA." Like, I'm making Levi's
Right,
jeans in the
right.
USA or whatever it might be. So there's that. There's real issues around, how we do the processing and how we do this interstate transport. You can
Mhm.
right now in the US, you can raise beef, you can butcher it on your property or at a local processor and sell it to the neighbor down the street. But if you live 10 miles from the state line, you can't cross the state line. even with the same product. So it's, their processing is a bottleneck. I mean, that still has to be addressed. I mean, this stuff was uncovered during COVID. I mean, I've known about it for many years, but prior to that,
Mhm.
it was kind of brought to more national attention, and still effectively next to nothing has been done to this. I mean,
Right, right, and the prices are sky high. I mean, the
yeah,
prices of beef
they're
have
going to go
not gone
higher most likely. They're probably going to go higher because I mean the
down.
supply's down, the demand's up. I mean, you can
Yeah.
in
Mhm,
part blame me for pushing how good beef is, but I mean a lot of people are realizing it. I mean, from
mhm,
comparing today versus 10 years ago, beef demand is up significantly because
mhm.
people no longer believe beef is
Yeah,
a harmful product. They
right.
understand it as a healthful food, whether they eat in a carnivore diet or not. So
Mhm.
that's a reality. So beef is in demand. Our ranchers are under pressure. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say, hey, let's subsidize these guys so they can get on their feet and produce food.
Yeah.
You can. I'd rather subsidize cattle ranchers than Somali friggin' leering centers. I mean, if we're talking about spending money, it's kind of the hopefully
The cattle
doesn't.
ranchers need to start identifying as Somalians. Um, so but speaking of beef, listen, we have our guys out in Oklahoma. Let's talk about them today because we do have a company that sponsors our show, and that is griddownchowdown.com. This is a
Mhm.
freeze-dried product, and, this is for some people use this as their main beef supply. It's ground beef, you add water, and if you're one of those people, maybe you don't have a lot of refrigeration, maybe you live far away from the city or for wherever your source is, you can get a monthly subscription of this. But a lot of people use it for prepping, they use it for camping, off-grid applications, things like that. It's a fantastic product. You can get a bigger pack as well. They also have been making jerky, and I think it's wonderful. And they're sourcing from American farmers and ranchers right out in the heartland. And so one of the best things about this too is when you do buy from them, you are helping to support and save American grasslands and grazing and farming and ranching. So that's a big plus. It's griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. You're going to get a little discount and then you can get a better price on the monthly subscription. You don't have to do the monthly. You can buy a one-time order and do it that way as well. Keep in mind that this is a small boutique company. They're not a big box, so they're probably not going to ship it to you within minutes of you ordering. So just have a realistic expectation. Great guys. They are doing a great thing out there. And so griddownchowdown.com, promo code Mary Grace. Please support them and put your money behind American farmers and ranchers so that we can keep bringing American beef to people's tables. Dr. Baker, we haven't even mentioned yet what you're doing out helping so many people with your company with Rivero. We haven't it hasn't come up once during the conversation. So
Well, that's a
let's talk
shame.
about that a little bit. I know we usually weave it into the conversation, but
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit and tell people how you can help them, whether it's through diet, lifestyle, reversing issues that they may have been struggling with. Tell us about Rivero.
Yeah, and I think I'll talk more about this Zepbound weight loss drug stuff in a second because this kind of lends itself to that in many ways. So, many physicians will say that diet and lifestyle are important, and that really is kind of the end of it. They might say, hey, you need to clean up your diet and um, you know but they don't really provide any resources. And so what we do, and I wholeheartedly believe that much of the chronic disease that we deal with today is amenable, in many cases reversible or quote unquote curable with appropriate lifestyle treatment. And I think I've seen that. And the reason I say this is because I see it every day. Literally, I see this happening every single day of my career. And so what we do is we are a all 50 state, online digital healthcare company with physicians and doctors that are on board that get this stuff. We have an entire dedicated clinical team that's dedicated to you. You get a health coach that's going to be, working with you, every week to help you to implement, to stay on track, to answer questions, to make adjustments, to we have you upload your data on a daily basis so we can examine it, so that we can start to make the adjustments. And we've had people that have already been on low carb and ketogenic and carnivore diets come to us still struggling, and we were able to help solve them with a lot of those issues, and get them on the right path, and in many cases get them off medications, and again,
Mhm.
this is, I don't care what your strategy is to try to get healthy. You have to turn that into a lifelong, sustainable process. You got to
Yeah.
build habits, you got to build a mindset, and this is what this helps to do. And I meet with all the patients twice a week. Every week I have a big meeting, and we chat and we talk, and we provide strategies, and that type of stuff. So I get, that's really my favorite part of the week, because I get to spend time talking to these people and seeing their successes and help them through their struggles. But yeah, if you are somebody with metabolic disease, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, you've got autoimmune disease, you've got inflammatory issues, we would love to help you. I'd love to see you. And we can hopefully help turn your life around. And it's not
Excellent.
something you do for the rest of your life. You do it for a period of, most of our patients were with us for about 6 months, and then we get them tuned up and out the door, and they're good to go. And hopefully they don't they don't need us anymore. That's the goal there. And
Yeah,
'cause
good. It's not a lifelong
yeah,
subscription to
no, of course not. No.
2
I
prescriptions,
mean, that's
right?
that's what the pharmaceutical industry is, the
Mhm.
lifetime subscription. And I think
Right,
this is
right.
the problem, and I can talk about with the weight loss drugs. We'll get to that topic about how that sort of plays out for many
Oh,
people.
yeah, you've been talking a lot about that. One thing I wanted to say about Revero is, so it's up on the screen, revero.com, and one of the things that is happening in the country right now is a lot of people have been choosing more, uh different to go in a different path than their standard allopathic physician, and the model is, pay out of pocket model, and one of the things that's happening with this administration is that Trump is really pushing and for a change so that more people can choose what they pay for rather than being forced into insurance premiums for a doctor that they don't actually want to see. And the reason that Dr. Baker and other doctors, like our friend Dr. Troy, the reason they don't take insurance is because it's the insurance companies are rigged in such a way that they don't pay for the diagnostic testing. They don't pay for preventive uh, strategies that are offered by teams like Dr. Baker's at Rivero. That's one of the big reasons there's no point in filing insurance. Plus, it's just a bureaucratic quagmire. And so if you're wondering and you go to the website and you go, "Oh, dang, they don't take my insurance," that's actually a better thing. And so I think that we are going away from that model of people depending on just the insurance to make a decision about what you can and can't do to take control of your health. And because we don't necessarily want people just simply living longer. We want quality of life as people age, not just simple length of days, especially if you're being kept barely alive by a bucket of prescription pills and this procedure and that procedure, and the insurance, and the people that are the happiest are the insurance companies. That's what I want to see change. Dr. Baker wants to see it change. And I believe that President Trump and RFK and the administration are also on the same page with that. So that's a good thing. It's exciting. Um, so let's see. I think, Dr. Baker, um, we may be ready to transition to some Q&A here.
Yeah, sounds
Um,
good.
yeah, but let's see. Let me see if we missed anybody. Well, the first thing that came up was, talking about, Zepbound, something in
Yeah, I
the
think there was a question before
schizophrenia.
that. There was one about schizophrenia, and somebody saying, "Can we help with schizophrenia, or how do you help with schizophrenia?" And I
Oh,
can't
I thought
remember.
they said it helped them. I thought they said the carnivore diet helped them with
Said,
schizophrenia.
"How to put my schizophrenia in remission?" There's a question here from
Oh, okay.
Jaden, looks like. Well, I mean, this is obviously a controversial topic. I mean, RFK came
Mhm.
out saying the ketogenic diets can put schizophrenia, can cure it. And, while that was very inflammatory, there is emerging evidence, and I would refer you to Metabolic Minds. This is the outfit that the Bazooki Foundation has founded. Story behind them: they are the people that basically created the game Roblox. So they're basically billionaires. And their son Matt has, and I'm actually going to be talking alongside him in Las Vegas next weekend. Was suffering from bipolar disorder, and
Mhm.
years and years of medications, never no success. Eventually saw some of the work of Chris Palmer at Harvard, who's this psychiatrist who's been talking about ketogenic diets for a long time, and was able to put it in full remission. And so he's got a normal life. And since
Mhm.
that time, they've been doing a lot of research, and they funded research to look at things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and also schizophrenia. And so they have seen that, they've had inpatient studies where they put schizophrenics on, very, very tightly controlled ketogenic diets, and have seen tremendous improvements across, in those patients. Now, does it mean it works for every single patient with schizophrenia?
Mhm.
That's unknown. We won't know until we have, randomized controlled trials and stuff like that, which they're trying to do right now, in fact. So my thought would be look up Metabolic Minds. I mean, that's their handle on X, and they probably have a presence on some of the others. I'm familiar with them on the X platform, but
Mhm.
and you can look up the work of Chris Palmer, Dr. George Eade, and others have done this. There are a few people I know that are actively have schizophrenia who've put it in remission that post pretty regularly. So I would look into that stuff, and hopefully it can give
Mhm.
you a direction there, because the brain clearly is affected by nutrition.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that there are other components that are there, but nutrition is a big part of it.
So one question, speaking of nutrition, um, the you're a carnivore, you wrote The Carnivore Diet.
Right.
You yourself are carnivore,
Mhm.
but you're not such a purist that you, um, get angry at people for choosing other kinds of foods.
No, I don't care. I don't care.
And
Do what works for you. That's what I tell people. I mean,
right.
like I said, I think for some people, particularly sick people, sometimes being very, very selective and strict
Mhm.
and cautious for a while is the right strategy.
Yeah.
And for some people, they prefer it and they enjoy it and it works well for them, and they're happy and they're satisfied and it doesn't feel restrictive. That's different from, saying you must do it this way and there's no exceptions, because I can tell you that
Yeah.
anybody that tells you it's my way or the highway, or always this or
Mhm.
never that, is that's just not it ends in problems usually. So you
Yeah,
gotta have
that
some
mindset
wiggle room.
really is
Yeah.
hard for people. So speaking of which, somebody mentioned that you can get shredded, it's possible to get shredded on carbs.
Yeah, of course you can.
And
Of course you can.
so
It's possible to get shredded on any diet. I
what are
mean,
your thoughts on that?
well, yeah, I mean, that's not that statement, and the fact that people get lean on carbs has nothing to do with the healing powers of a ketogenic diet or
Mhm.
carnivore diet, or the fact that people can get lean without carbs. I mean, it's irrelevant. Who cares? I mean, and if it works for you and you're happy with that, by all means, go for it. I mean,
Mhm.
like I said,
Mhm.
I'm dealing with sick people with severe disease. I don't really care about getting shredded as a physician. That's not my goal here. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a side thing. I mean, I like to exercise and work out and compete, and what I do works for me. But as far as the fact that you can lose weight by going into a caloric deficit is not any kind of magical revelation. I mean,
Mhm.
and I mean I mean, I guess to be fair, there are people in the low carb community, keto community, uh, uh, carnivore community that will say, "Oh, you can only lose weight losing, eating without when you cut carbs," and that doesn't,
Yeah.
maybe for you, and maybe it's true for you, but it doesn't mean it's true for everybody. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a sad thing, and so then we get this unnecessary antagonism, because we're dealing with people that are legitimately sick and suffering,
Yeah.
hurting, and they've already tried carbs. I mean, most people don't do carnivore for their first attempt. They've done 15 other diets before. They've
Mhm.
tried medications. It's not like
Yeah.
it's usually what they do this out of desperation as a
Mhm.
last ditch effort. And then the critics will say, "Oh, you could have got the same result if you just cut out processed food and went and ate in a caloric deficit." And they're like, "Look, I tried that 15 other times and it didn't work." So
Mhm.
again, some people need other tools, and it's just a
Right.
tool. So
And we talked before about the fact that carnivore is an elimination diet, and when you pare it down to beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and sometimes not even bacon, your body is having a chance to reset, and then you get more in touch with what happens when you do see some healing, emerge, and then you start to reintroduce one at a time other foods, then it becomes very clear because your body can act as a barometer to say, no, my joints are inflamed, not eating that food. If you're doing something like keto, where you're basically, I think, in some ways, trying to reinvent foods that you loved with so-called lower calorie or lower glycemic replacements, then you still have a lot of, in some cases, very highly processed ingredients going into your mouth. And so you can't really, um, by process of elimination, figure out the root cause, the underlying cause of what it was that got you there in the first place. So I think there is a lot of value in stripping it down to the essentials for a time. A lot of people find that like 90 days, sometimes 180 days is the sweet spot to where they really start to see changes, not just in their weight, but in their entire overall well-being. Is that something that you've noticed time-wise?
Yeah, like I said, it's not just about losing weight. I mean, we've
Right.
got people that are underweight, like I say, a lot of
Right.
these people with inflammatory bowel disease, they might be 6
Mhm.
foot 2 and weigh 125 pounds,
Yeah.
because they've just shredded away to nothing. So sometimes they have to put on weight, and
Yeah.
it's about
Yeah.
nutrition.
Yeah.
And, it's not just, "Oh, you can lose weight anyway," and you can,
Mhm.
but a lot of times losing weight without providing the appropriate nutrition doesn't
Right.
cure disease or doesn't
Right.
doesn't mitigate disease. And so you have
Yeah.
to be
For sure.
mindful of what your food is. The quality of your food is more important than the quantity of the food in many cases for many things. Maybe not for weight loss, maybe not for caloric deficit, but for
Yeah.
nutrition and disease mitigation and repair. You the quality of the food is very important.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, you people in the chat were asking about the GLP
Yeah, sure. Let's
agonists,
talk about this.
and you've been on this topic quite a bit, um, on your social media.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, I think if you're gonna go on a GLP-1 drug, I think the worst thing you can do is if you wanna lose 10 pounds, you wanna get a little lean for the summer and you're gonna take a drug for a little while because it may work, and there's reasonable chance that you'll lose some of that weight. But again, one of the concerns, again, for most people, I mean, if you're smart about it, and somebody's asking would a carnivore diet be appropriate for GLP-1, I think if you're gonna go on those drugs, and it's up to you to make that decision. Number one, you absolutely 100% definitely, no questions asked, should be in the gym strength training. That is not
yeah,
even a
yeah.
question, because you will lose lean mass if you don't do that. And that goes really for any weight loss diet, to be honest. But I mean,
Mhm.
maybe more so with these particular drugs. But we know that, like, for those people that go on them and they cycle on and off, what happens is they lose weight, they come off the drug, they rapidly regain the weight. They probably don't regain any of the muscle back. So what happens is they end up, there was some 2-year data just dropped, and it showed that, there's a pretty, whatever weight you lose, you gain about 70% of that back over a
Mhm.
period of time. And that pretty much is all fat. And so you've lost muscle,
Mhm.
you've kind of rebuilt your fat. So now you have a worse body composition after you get off the drug. For
Mhm.
for many people, now again, there are people that are going to maybe change their lifestyle and get in the gym and work out and eat more protein, and that makes sense. But I mean, I think you have to be prepared that going on these drugs is not necessarily I'm just gonna do this, tune things up for 6-week decision. It's gonna be a lifelong decision for many people, because
Mhm.
some people will find that, it's like these guys that take steroids. They'll get like, "Oh, I got all swollen big," and they feel great about that, and then when they come off it, they feel miserable, and then they
Yeah.
feel like they have to keep going back on it. So I think what you're gonna start seeing is some of these people that will say, "I'm gonna do it just to lose those 10 pounds for the summer so I can get in my bikini," and then they come off it, their appetite flares up, they gain all the fat back, and they're, "I'm gonna go back
Mhm.
on again," and then they lose some more muscle, and they gain more fat, and they keep
Yeah.
cycling this. So
Yeah.
then they end up on the drug for the rest of their life, with that,
Mhm.
with whatever they charge you. And right now they're trying to discount the prices because they're trying to placate Medicare so they can get on the Medicare pharmacy. And then 3 years goes by and Kennedy's not in office, and they got people that are want to grease the gears for the pharmaceutical. Then the prices come back up, and now you're hooked on this drug for the rest of your life, potentially. Again, I'm not saying everybody's going to be like this, but this is a real concern. So, ultimately, you're still going to have to make those lifestyle changes. And I think it's better to try those if you haven't. And this is what we do at Rivera. We get people that are, maybe struggling to be consistent, and we help them to stay consistent. And
Mhm.
we motivate, keep them accountable. We cheer them on. We yell at them. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, we do whatever it takes to
Yeah,
help people
yeah.
stay consistent and get better and develop the habits. And I think that is the key here.
Mhm.
Like I said, there was this is my concern with that, is that, I mean, obviously there are some side effects, depending on how rare they are, depending on who you believe, but certainly there's a lot of people in the ER filling up ERs with GI side effects, intractable vomiting, bowel obstructions,
Mhm.
gastroparesis, just issues that are pretty common.
Mhm.
Um, so we don't, the one sad thing about drug complications and side effects and adverse events is, in the United States, we don't have a good method to report them. I mean, it's completely voluntary. So if you come to the ER with, like, you say you have a rupture of bowel from being on a GLP-1, there's no requirement to report that to the FDA. It's voluntary, completely voluntary. And when they
Mhm.
look at the data on that, about 1% of those events ever get reported to the FDA through the voluntary channels. And so some hospitals have a little bit more, better system for that, but in general, they estimate about 1% of adverse events ever get reported. So it might take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to say, hey, we're, you know, we have
Mhm.
a real problem here. So,
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
there are people that are going to benefit from this. And there are people in the crowd, and I always get people, oh, I've been using these drugs for 2 years and I've lost weight and I haven't gained any weight and I feel good.
Mhm.
And that's great for you, but you have to realize that for every one of those people, there's going to be a certain percentage of people that are going to be having problems with that. And that's just to say that maybe they could have been avoidable if you're willing to bite the
Yeah.
bullet and do the work that you should be doing anyway.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I think part of it too is that in this country, we have such a massive problem with addiction to everything, and it's you combine that with the ultra processed addictive foods, and the real I'm curious to see how people's health changes and improves as we move away from those things. It may be that people don't feel like they need the GLPs because they're eating nutritious food and they're getting over those addictions because they're getting away from the actual addictive properties of the highly processed foods. I mean, I think that's the hope is that we can put our country into a position where the addictive nature of all of these processed foods is no longer an element, no longer a contributor at some point. I mean, I know it's gonna take time, but I think that's part of the goal here is to get people off of these addictive substances so that they don't feel like they need a shot after 25 years of trying and failing to lose weight or to address their health
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and the interesting I mean, it's interesting because you look at, like, Oprah Winfrey, her and, like, Demi Moore, they're, I don't know if you've seen recently, they're very thin. I mean,
Demi
typically,
Moore looks so bad.
she's looking skeletal, and she's vegan
Yeah.
on top of that, so that's not a very good combination, vegan and
Oh,
GLP-1.
yeah.
I mean, that's gonna
Yeah.
be a real problem for frailty, and I would not be surprised if she suffers some kind of fracture in the next 5 years, maybe
Mhm.
hip fracture, elbow fracture, something like that. Um, yeah, I mean, I think maybe, I mean, we're seeing some of the younger generations, so-called Generation Z, or whatever's after
Mhm.
Generation Alpha after Z. I don't know who's
Yeah.
after that,
Gen Z, yeah.
but then after, there's something after
Oh,
Gen Z.
Generation Alpha,
Yeah,
Alpha.
Generation Alpha, the little babies right now.
Yeah.
I think some of those kids are starting to reject some of this stuff. I mean, there's thought that maybe they're not drinking as much
Mhm.
alcohol, maybe because they don't socialize and they
Yeah, yeah.
stay at home and stare at their phone, maybe. But I mean, I mean, it's going to have to be just a cultural shift to say, hey, it's not cool to be eating garbage anymore. I think
Mhm.
that has to be, because,
Yeah.
again, all the advertising, what is, if you think about who's the target demographic for most advertising? It's that, what is it, that 15 to 34 crowd or something like that. These are the impressionable young
Mhm.
adults that set their lifetime patterns. If you can get them addicted to
Yeah.
cigarettes or Coca-Cola or alcohol or whatever early on, or now
Yeah.
start pharmaceuticals, they're going to do it for the rest of their life, and they just become addicted, and that's
Mhm.
their way of life, and they just kind of accept it. And so
Right.
we see this massive sort of, and I mean, big pharma is definitely, I mean, as you know, they spend more federal lobbying dollars than anyone else for any industry by
Mhm.
far, like 3 to 1
Yeah.
above the next biggest thing. They pay the politicians, they influence
Yep.
all the major
Mhm.
medical organizations, medical association, American Diabetes, on and on and on, American Heart Association. And now they've infiltrated social media. And they've got all these influencers that are just like, here, hey, these drugs are fine and you should use them and there's nothing wrong with them. And how dare
Yeah.
you shame people? And I
Mhm.
mean, it's all part of a propaganda push. I
Yeah.
mean, as a physician, I want to see what's best for patients. And I believe that if you can solve a problem without drugs, it's generally better. That is the better solution. And these other things are last resorts. And now they're saying, well, 12-year-old kid should be on these drugs. And to me, that's really sad. I mean, it's almost as sad as like in Canada
Mhm.
where they're assassinating people because they're depressed when they're 20. It's just like
Right. Yeah.
it's it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it
saw
is
that.
crazy, yeah.
I think I
I
saw
think
that Canada. I think that the fourth leading cause of death in Canada is
assisted
government suicide, assisted suicide.
euthanasia.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was teaching, I was at a middle school in like a public school, and one of the things that really shocked me was in the cafeteria, they have, first of all, like all junk. I mean, it's highly, highly processed foods, but they have these big vats of ranch dressing and ketchup. And every student, like they come out of the cafeteria line and they drown everything in ranch dressing, which is literally a bunch of seed oils and chemicals. And so that's the diet that they are growing up on. So like you said, the mindset has to change. Do you wanna take a quick question? We have a question about Raynaud's disease.
Oh,
Um,
Raynaud's. Yeah, Raynaud's is a
Raynaud's, yeah.
yeah. So it's a phenomenon where people they have the really cold
Like,
digits, basically fingers and
okay.
toes, typically, and so and, there's a Raynaud's phenomenon, Raynaud's disease, and basically, people have just very very vasospasms in their fingers and stuff like that. And the question is, can a carnivore diet potentially help that? That's not something I commonly see. I have seen a couple people with Raynaud's improve that. I know this person said there's seemed to get worse, and so I don't. This is not one where I would say I can't draw upon thousands and thousands of anecdotes. So yeah, like I could say diabetes. Yeah, it's easy. It's one of those things. So
Mhm,
it's one of those things where I think that the standard treatments for it are not really particularly good. They don't really have good answers for Raynaud's right now in the conventional
mhm,
medicine. I think maximizing lifestyle would be a benefit. I mean, there might be some nuances to carnivore that might shift things in your favor. I mean, maybe being more strict, maybe even more ketogenic, and then coupling it with the appropriate lifestyle
mhm.
modalities. Because I think sleep and activity and exercise, stress, sunlight, all those things have roles here. So I can't, I don't have a great sense about Raynaud's though. I mean,
Yeah,
like some other diseases, I could say pretty like inflammatory bowel disease. I think that's a no brainer for carnivore. I mean, and some of these are kind of more like there may be some other things you have to do. So.
mhm. I have a question, an orthopedic question.
Mhm.
So the Olympics have passed,
Mhm.
but one of the
Are you,
big
are you planning?
stories.
Are you planning on the Olympics or something?
No, no, I wanted to ask you about Lindsey Vonn as
Yeah,
an
yeah,
orthopedic. So
she had a pretty bad tibial plateau fracture. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, on how what you think her prognosis is. I think there was some question about whether she might lose her leg, but I think the surgeon that saw her when she got back to the US was able to mitigate that
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
release the
Yeah,
pressure in there.
she probably developed some compartment syndrome. So what happens is when you have high energy trauma, um,
Mhm,
our muscles are surrounded by a layer of fascia, and it's like a tight sleeve. And when the pressure builds up and builds up and builds up and it can't escape, that pressure causes the blood circulation to cut off because there's too much pressure. It's like having a real
mhm,
tight blood pressure cuff on it. So they pump it up to like 500 and you can't get any blood through in there. So what happens is the muscle starts to become necrotic. So it dies. And so the longer that those compartments are pressurized, the more the muscle dies. So what you have to do is you go in and make these long incisions and you just open everything
mm,
up. And that's what they did with Lindsay. So you see these
okay,
pictures of her with her legs slit open.
mhm,
So, I mean, she's probably had a little muscle on her die, probably. So she probably lost a little muscle. How much of that she can recover and bring back.
mhm,
will be limited. She's probably going to walk with a limp for a while, I would imagine. She had a pretty bad comminuted, comminuted means broken into many pieces, fracture involving the joint. So she's got a couple plates on there, plates and screws if you've seen the
Yeah,
X-ray.
yeah, I saw that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we see that those are always fractures where the odds of developing post-traumatic arthritis are significant. She could end up to where she has pretty bad knee arthritis and might need a knee replacement down the road.
Mhm.
If I were her, what I would do is I would, and she's probably already going to do this. I mean, exercise, rehab, strengthen the joint, work on range of motion, and then on top of that, I would eat a diet that was low inflammatory. And this is one
Mhm.
of the things that I find personally as a nearly 60-year-old
Yeah, yeah.
athlete. The reason I can continue to jump and sprint and hop and
Mhm.
lift heavy and do those things that most people my age can't do or don't do is in part because my joints feel good, and the diet does impact it. I know when I go off the diet and I eat more carbohydrates, I notice for the next couple of days I just feel sore. And when I'm feeling sore, guess what I don't feel like doing? I don't feel like
Right.
exercise and taking
It's
care
a
of myself.
cycle. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like
Mhm.
I said, I think she should probably, I mean, at the very least, and I have no doubt as an Olympic athlete, she will train. I mean, that's probably built into her. She's going
Right.
to be training and doing all the things. She has probably great resources around her to do that.
Mhm.
The only thing I would do is, just be mindful of the diet, and then anytime you're healing from an injury, protein becomes critical. So you should bump your protein up. If you're not already eating a high protein diet, you should be bumping into a higher protein amount.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Well, thank you for explaining, especially the part about the fascia, because I saw that and I was like, "Wow, that's intense," you know?
Yeah, it's like if you ever but like you're cutting meat and there's like the silver skin, right? The silver
Mhm.
skin we all take
Yeah,
off, and that's the
yeah.
fat, and that doesn't stretch very much. And so when the pressure builds up and the pressure builds up and it wants to swell, there's no room for it to swell. So the pressure just mounts and mounts and mounts. It's kind of like
Mhm.
the kind of
Kinda
it's
like a
kind of
brain
analogous to
bleed.
like the gas laws, Charles and Boyle's law from you learned in high school physics
Mhm.
about when pressure goes up,
Yeah,
so you have this just incredible pressure that mounts and mounts, and it's
yeah.
incredibly painful. And believe it or not, just slicing someone's leg open and slicing through that fascia relieves that pressure. So it helps. It
That's
actually feels
yeah,
better. Now the
yeah.
problem is you got these big open wounds you got to deal with now. And sometimes you need plastic
Right,
surgery, and
yeah.
so it's an issue for sure.
I mean, I just thought it was to me one of the most interesting things to come out of the Olympics, because I'm kind of fascinated with that kind of thing. But, I mean, she's a pretty tough gal, so, um, I hope she comes back strong. I think we have time probably for one more question. I know we didn't do a ton of questions today, but we had an active chat. We didn't have a ton of questions. So, let's see, we did the Renaud's, yeah, so people are kind of just doing a lot of back and forth in the YouTube, which is fine. I think there's a lot of interaction there. Um, but let me see. Um, I think one day, Dr. Baker, we should do a whole show and highlight all of your, strongman competition highlights. 'Cause I think it's fascinating. So, and you put a picture up the other day. I thought I had saved it, and you were kind of a fatty, like, when you were
Yeah, I
younger.
mean, when I was probably late 30s, I was, I mean, I spent 20 years weighing in excess of 285 pounds. And I mean, I picked the most unflattering picture I could find of me, but I mean, and truth be told, I was still a big, strong, kind of a hulking character. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
was not lean by any stretch, but I wasn't. You wouldn't see me and say, "Oh, look at that fat guy." You'd say, "Look at that big son of a bitch." I mean, I was
right,
a big, strong guy, big, huge traps, and I was strong. I could
yeah.
deadlift close to 800 pounds, and I was fast, and I could jump. I could still dunk a basketball when I weighed nearly 300 pounds. So I mean, in my
Wow,
40s, and so,
yeah.
I
And you
mean,
threw the log, like the
yeah, yeah, caber, yeah, I used to
pole.
compete, I was in the Highland Games, I was a world champion in that, so we'd run
Yeah,
down, you'd run with those big poles, those cabers, we call them, and we'd run with them, and you'd have to flip them over, and so took a little bit of, being able to really just sprint and then explode at the end, and so, I
Sounds
may, in
amazing.
fact, I'm thinking I may do that when I turn 60. I may do one on just for fun, throw the
There's
tilt back
one
on and go.
there's a Highland Games competition coming up really soon, I saw. Where
Well,
is
they're
it
all
gonna
over the country. They're all over the US. There's
Okay.
there's probably 500 games a year in the US throughout when I used to do that stuff. I did that stuff
Mhm.
throughout my 40s. I did that stuff, and so
Yeah,
I'm just, I'm literally like my level of strength right now at 60 is almost identical to what it was in my 40s.
that's amazing.
So, I mean, I haven't lost anything, which is
So
I
you
just
just
got done
gotta keep
deadlifting tonight, and I
Yeah.
just, it's 405 pounds for 21 reps pretty easily. And, I'm like, I can still probably throw the hell out of stuff. So I may go back and at 60 and just for fun, try to win a
Yeah,
game and maybe break a record or something like that.
that would be
Among
fun.
the other things I'm trying to do when I turn 60. So anyway,
Yeah, do it'll be interesting. I'm turning 61 next week, so just trying to
happy birthday.
build up thank you, yeah, trying to build back up my strength. I was mentioning, to Doctor Baker off the show that I was really sick. Last show we did, I was kinda coughing and, struggling a little bit, and then I ended up being sick for about a month, and I lost so much of my strength. And it was amazing how fast it happened. And so I've been building back up, and I'm working with a trainer just so that I have some focus and accountability to get back on track. But wow, I was like amazed because one of the things I try to do is I make a point of getting on the floor and off the floor, multiple times without my hands, right? Getting up and getting on your knees and just standing up. And I think that's my trainer told me that one of her clients lost that ability during COVID because she
Mm.
was housebound and she fell and she didn't even realize that she had gotten to that point until she fell and had to scoot herself over to where she could grab onto some furniture and get herself up. And I never wanna get to that point. I mean, I wanna be way beyond that point, but I think it's for anybody that's, 40, older, keep that in mind. That's something that I think would be the bare minimum is get on the floor, get off the floor multiple times a day, and see if you can do it without holding on to anything. And then, you have the other end of the spectrum, which is Dr. Baker is, deadlifting and pressing and jumping and doing very high level sports, which is always a goal for all of us could be to stay
Well,
strong.
like I said, I'm going to give a lecture in Vegas on some of this stuff about,
Yeah.
I think as an orthopedic surgeon, I think we've been giving, I mean, as a medical community, we've been giving people bad advice for 50 plus years about, what we should do actively wise as a role, or, this low impact, take it easy stuff is harming people.
Mhm.
There's some caveats around this, but I mean, your muscle, your ligaments, your tendons, your joints, your cartilage needs to experience load to be nourished, quite honestly. Particularly your
Mhm.
cartilage, particular cartilage. So anyway,
Yeah, it does make sense. So, I think we gotta wrap it up here. It's
yeah.
top of the hour. It goes so fast.
Yeah,
Is there
Daisy's getting tired. Daisy's waking up too, so she wants to
Oh,
see.
let's
She's got me to
see.
see how
Okay,
she's doing.
that's gonna see that makes us go viral right there. That's little
We got
Daisy.
a viral dog.
Hey,
Yep.
Daisy. Hi, baby. Look at her little ears. She's so cute. I wanted to remind everybody if you didn't get the notification, please go to my website, marygracemedia.com, and you can get on the mailing list, and then you'll get an email before we go live and do a show like this. Also, a lot of my sponsors are over there on that website, and you can find our Grid Down Chow Down. You can also find our wellness store, which is where you can find supplements. So if you are taking supplements, please avoid the Amazon and things like that. They're known for selling counterfeits. The counterfeiters just make up they copy labels and put them on things that have a lot
Mm.
of fillers and binders and sometimes just cornstarch. So, and you're spending still a lot of money. So please make sure you go to my website and look at my wellness store. It's Mary Grace Essentials, and you can go there. You get a discount on your first order, free shipping, all that. But any brand you're using, if it's a reputable brand, it's most likely we have it over there. So please do that for yourself if you're taking supplements. Make sure you're investing in the good stuff. So I think that's it, and, let's see Daisy's little face one more time because she's just so cute.
There she
Look at
is.
her. So cute. She reminds me of my little cat, Billy. Look at her little face.
The
"Hey,
cat, oh, she's
Daisy."
insulted.
But she's, like, large and in charge, aren't you? Aren't you, Daisy?
She runs the house. The other big dogs are terrified of her. Yeah.
I bet dachshunds are not no slackers. I
No,
mean,
she doesn't back down. She's tough.
yeah.
She's all go. That's for sure.
Yeah,
When
they're
she's
like
awake
ba
anyway.
what they're like badger hunters,
Yeah.
so they have to be tough. Okay, well, that's it for today, and this has been episode 15 of Healing America and Beyond, and, so we hope that you guys have a good week, good happy spring almost. Go outside, touch some grass, look at the sky, leave your phone in the house, unplug for a while, pretend it's the 80s and you can't take your phone outside with you, and, just be.
Go
That's
skip.
what
Skip.
yeah.
Start
Skip.
skipping.
Oh, yeah, skip. Start skipping.
Start skipping.
I've been meaning to do that. Skipping, look
Skipping
at
and
the
hopping. Yeah. Skip,
sky,
hop,
look
jump.
at the
Get out
yeah,
there.
look at the sun, talk to God, touch the grass, hop, skip, jump, all that. Leave your phone in the house. Everybody have a great day, and we are glad that you were with us today. Thank you for everybody in the chat and for being with us. Take care, everybody. Bye.